Three key ways to use the concept of everyone is you pushed out to improve your life, your business, and your career. If you're new here, welcome back. My name is Sheena Shui. I am a burnout therapist and business and career mentor, and I help C-suite executives, entrepreneurs, business owners, beginners, consultants, anything, you name it. I help you bring the very best of you out so you can achieve all your goals and dreams and be the most expansive version of you without the burnout. All right. So, in this week's episode of Burnout to Brilliance, we're going to explore the really powerful concept of everyone is you pushed out and how it applies to both your career and your business as well as your personal life. Now, you've often heard me blend spirituality and psychology. And so we're going to do this again today, just to show how your relationships and your circumstances really reflect your inner state. So we're going to give you three actionable steps to shift your mindset and create really meaningful change today. Okay, so everyone is you pushed out. You can talk about this from either a psychological or a spiritual perspective. And I think it works really well for both. But the original concept that we're talking about here today came from Neville Goddard and the law of assumption. And, he got it from other people. There's always going to be, everyone repeats themselves and reframes the same things in different ways. So, his concept of everyone as you pushed out was using the law of assumption and the law of attraction that there is no one but you from a spiritual perspective. So if you're in the frequency of success and opportunity, you're naturally going to find yourself being friends with, communicating with, being in rooms full of people who are successful and have incredible opportunities. Similarly, if you're in a frequency or thinking about yourself of not being successful, always having bad luck, you in turn will attract conversations, people who are also in that. Misery loves company, right? Now, you can look at that from a spiritual or a psychological perspective, but this all comes back to how you see yourself internally. And whenever we have internal conflict with what we want to achieve in life versus the way that we see ourselves, that is going to be a recipe for burnout because who you want to become versus who you are right now, there's a cognitive dissonance there. And it's almost like you're constantly on striving to be someone, to chase something. And that chasing energy versus attracting energy is really going to burn you out. So let's talk about this from a celebrity perspective, because I think celebrities are really good examples of just owning who they are and the success comes. So if you think about Lady Gaga, if you look at Lady Gaga before she was who she was, when she was Stephanie, right? She went through an evolution where she sort of used to dress differently, a little bit grungy, and then she just owned who the F she was. She started dressing like the Lady Gaga we are today, really fashion forward pieces, bringing in that European stuff into it, right? That really fashion forward, Alejandro, all of that. She owned that Lady Gaga almost persona before she made it. And that is part of the reason she made it, because when she owned that, like, this is who I am. My success is inevitable. I am famous. I am going to walk into the room like I am Lady freaking Gaga. Success followed. She attracted that. She was ready for the opportunity because she walked out there and walked into it as her. And you can watch old clips of her where there's not a lot of people in the audience, but she is performing like the woman we know today, big, bold, out there. leaning on her backup dancers, right? And there's people who aren't even cheering, but she is still performing like she is performing to a stadium of thousands. Okay. So she used this kind of self-concept and this law of assumption, and everyone is you pushed out and attracted big opportunities fast. But between those old performances and Just Dance coming out was less than a year, right? So going to performing where no one knows who you are, no one knows your name, people aren't even clapping for you, not even putting their drink down to recognize you, and then being Lady Gaga with Just Dance, her premiere single coming out less than a year, she attracted that. She owned it, right? And you can see that shift in her. So, one of the first key takeaways I want you to think of is shifting your inner dialogue. So, and your self talk. So, again, we talk about inner dialogue. Self talk is the same thing where your thoughts shape how others treat you and the opportunities that you attract, both in life and in business. So, if you walk into a room and you automatically start to think, I'm nobody in this room, people are way more successful here. I'm so intimidated. Or maybe I don't belong here. Those are really normal automatic thoughts, right? What's really important is that if you're shifting how you want to be seen and who you want to become, you got to catch yourself and shift back into, I am more than capable of what I'm doing. I am more than capable of being a leader in this room. I am a born leader because we all are. It's just whether or not we end up tapping into that energy or not. And so, someone who walks into a room, head held high, shoulders back, open, smiling, ready to connect is going to have a completely different experience than someone who kind of walks into a room, quiet, soft, can't even make eye contact with people. They are going to have two completely different experiences. They are going to have completely two different conversations. They're going to have completely two different opportunities presented to them because of the way that they talk about themselves internally and how they hold themselves. So, this is why things like spiritual things like affirmations are the same as what we're doing when we're shifting your core beliefs from a psychological perspective. We're getting you to say, I catch myself falling into an old belief, an old core belief. Now I'm going to shift into the person that I want to be, act as if. It's not fake it till you make it because it's not a fake part of you. It is a real part of you that just needs to be pulled out a bit more, that just needs to be enhanced a bit more. I think sometimes fake it till you make it gets a bad rap, but it really is part of who you are. So, what I want you to action today, number one, shift your internal dialogue, is just notice if you think about maybe a big business or career opportunity that you want, or maybe that's happened recently. And I want you to think about that situation walking in and or accepting it, whether it's like, oh, I get 100 new clients, or I land the 250 grand contract, or I get the promotion, or, I'm seen in media, whatever that opportunity is. I want you to notice what thoughts come up and journal on that. Either journal on it, reflect on it when you're going for a walk, even talk to yourself about it. Again, a lot of people talk about talking to yourself as like something crazy to do, but sometimes it's almost having that conversation with yourself of, okay, I had a client come to me with a 250 grand contract, and my initial thought was, this is amazing, but oh my gosh, am I able to do this? Am I capable of doing this? Why would they choose me? Yada, yada. Like, notice what automatic thoughts come up. And then identify a reframe of that, so do the opposite. So why would they choose me? Really start to go, the reason they would choose me is because I'm good at what I do. I get client results. I've worked really hard to get to this point in my career. I know people making more money than me with less skills than me. That's 100% guaranteed right there, because I know life coaches with no qualifications, no age, to be honest, not a lot of life experience, which, no judgment, lucky you that you haven't had to go through the tests and turmoils that some of us have had to, but they're getting paid way more than you. I know millions, life coaches on millions and millions of dollars per annum. So if you're having any doubt whatsoever of your capability, and just know that there's some life coach in Ibiza drinking Mai Tais who is absolutely nailing it just because they have the delusion to. So again, reframe those beliefs of course they would choose me because XYZ, there are people earning more than me, da 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 da. So that's number one. Shift your inner dialogue and self-talk and notice it. That's really big. Okay, so number two of the three key ways to use everyone is you pushed out to transform your business, career, and life is setting intentions for your interactions. So, again, somewhat similar to the example I just gave of when you're walking into either a networking event or a business meeting or whatever the thing may be, where there's a lot of people in your industry or conference, whatever it is, the energy you bring into your relationships influences how people respond to you. Like we just talked about, someone who holds their head up high, chin up, shoulders back, but has a warm persona, smiling. If you're, for those of you watching me on YouTube, you can see how if I shift my posture and I smile at you, you can feel that energy, that connectedness versus when I like shrink down and I like can barely look. You feel that. And so if I set the intention, if I visualize before any meeting that I have, before I interact with people, how I would like the interaction to go, my brain, my body, my physiology, so when I say physiology, I mean my nervous system, the way that I feel walking into that meeting will be a match. So for example, if I feel imposter syndrome over a meeting or a networking event, my nervous system and my physiology might be that of racing heart rate, racing thoughts, dry mouth, and all of those things are going to play a part in how I interact with people. So if I can barely get the words out, I'm coughing because my mouth is so dry from nervousness. I have to go to the bathroom every 2 seconds because I'm so nervous. Um, I'm not making sense with the what I'm saying because my heart rate is so fast. My thoughts are racing because I have imposter syndrome in that situation. That's going to be very different energy and a very different interaction that an outcome of that interaction that you're going to have versus if you just took 5 minutes, even if you're at a conference, you go to the ladies' room, you go into a stall, you close your eyes, and you just take a couple breaths and really visualize walking into the room as if you've accomplished everything you want to accomplish. And you visualize the people you want to talk to, and even if you don't know who's in the room, maybe you've never met anyone in this room, just imagining the feeling of people smiling at you, connecting with you, that little buzz you get in your chest and your belly when an opportunity arises or someone goes, I'd love to introduce you to the CEO of, or I'd love to introduce you to this connection, or I'd love to have you on this podcast, or maybe we should get you onto this TV show. Imagine those feelings coming up, whatever that thing might be, right? So visualize that before you walk in, and then your body will be in the feeling of this is done. I'm calm. Yes, there's a feeling of exhilaration, but it's good. It's not a nervous energy. It's more of a excited, uplifting energy. Just a slight shift because they're very similar energies, but one is the heart rate and thoughts racing are having sort of a somewhat negative effect. They're not bringing out the best in you, whereas the other one has an exhilarating feeling of it is bringing out the best in me. So, your action is before each meeting, email, or interaction you have today, just set a clear and positive intention for how you want the other person to respond to that interaction and actually take a moment to visualize it happening. So, again, even on a smaller scale, imagine that you've sent an email to a client who you'd love for them to come into your program or connect with you or work with you or whatever the thing is. Imagine that they receive the email and they're so ready to work with you. They're like, "Yep, you're my person. That's it. Let's do it." It could even be as simple as that. Okay, final thing of three key ways to use everyone as you pushed out to transform your business career in life. The number three that we're going to do today is owning your reality. This one's hard, yo, from a spiritual and psychological perspective. So, if everyone is around you is a reflection of your own internal beliefs, taking responsibility for how you view situations is key to breaking burnout cycles, but it's also key to making sure you get into really successful circumstances and really owning your success. So, I actually want to share a really personal example that I hate to admit, but I have to admit it for me to move forward. And I think we can all learn from this. So, I recently had a business deal go south in a bad way. Now, here's the thing that business deal and the people that I was doing that business deal with were all reflections of previous patterns that I myself have been in. Now, it was there to show me again what I was not seeing. Whether you see this from a psychological perspective or a spiritual perspective. And again, we use this example often in the therapy space, but you do see this pattern of women who have domestic violence partners will naturally choose partners over time. They keep getting these awful partners over time. Excuse me. And so excuse me, you often see that in their childhood, there was something like that in their childhood, some sort of fear or trigger, domestic violence in some way, a pattern of power or coercion in their relationships. And that is now playing out over and over and over again. Now, is it that does that excuse the other person's behavior? Absolutely not. If they are being an absolute narcissist, turmoil, that is still on them. However, have you learned the pattern to not attract those sorts of people, to not let those sorts of people in, to listen to your gut feeling when something is not right? No. So this is the thing is that when you own the fact that if you find yourself around people who complain a lot, maybe there was a past version of you that used to complain a lot. And so if you don't want to be around people who complain, you've got to break that habit of being maybe seeing the negative in a situation and only sort of starting to shift and talk about the positives in situations. Or maybe, again, this often happens is if you're quite anxious, you do tend to see the fear in a situation and in a relationship. You will see the negative outcomes first and then the positive ones. which is why it's so important to shift anxiety and burnout as part of reaching your brilliance, from burnout to brilliance, right? We need to shift that thinking so you can see the positive in things. So once you start being a more positive person, you start to realize, I actually don't like being around complainers all the time. I actually don't want to see the negative situations all the time. I actually don't want to sit and gossip or talk about all the negatives of, oh, I like this, but I would critique this. I actually do want to be around people who go, wow, that was incredible, or, really hype other people up, which then means you need to let go of those people. You need to let go of old patterns, because those same sorts of people will keep coming into your reality if you don't shift how you hold yourself. If you're a complainer, you'll attract complainers. If you tend to be a rescuer, you will attract people who need to be rescued. If you're a giver, you will get takers in your life. See what I'm getting at? You need to own some of what you've attracted in your life. Now, back to my situation is I didn't want to admit that I had attracted that, because I have done so much work on myself, right? But as many of you know, I went through a separation in the last year. And that was really emotionally a big thing for me, given that we have kids and assets, and it was really messy for a little while there. And thank goodness it's coming better, but it's not fun. And so I was not in a good place to be getting into new business deals, because I was not in a good place internally, and that reflected in my external reality, right? And now I'm not going to make that mistake again. I had to have the same pattern happen to me so that I will change it. So I want you to do that for yourself as well. So when we think about what's an action you can take around this, a reflection point, I want you to think about, what's a situation where you feel stuck or frustrated at the moment, and really ask yourself, how is this reflecting my current beliefs? And then, really, again, coming back to that self concept, your belief system, ask yourself a new belief that you can have to shift the situation. Or, be brutally honest with yourself and go, what is it that I did to attract this situation? Or what is it that I didn't do that attracted this situation? So, again, in my situation, I had gut feelings at the beginning that I ignored. I had advice given to me at the beginning that I ignored. I got into patterns that I knew I shouldn't have, and I ignored it because I was going through so much that I just put blinkers on, and I wasn't in a good space to listen. Now, here's the thing. We're all going to have mistakes, and we're all going to do this. And the biggest thing is learning from it, right? You don't want to have that situation come out in vain. Even if it costs you a lot of money, even if it costs you a lot of time, the biggest thing is making sure you get the lesson from it so that it wasn't in vain. And you will have many lessons. And this lesson I had, that, my own personal stuff around it, I might slip back when I'm 50 or 60 and have another situation similarly to that, because I maybe let my guard or awareness down, right? This is why personal development, it's ever lasting. All right. So to summarize, three actionable ways to use everyone is you pushed out to transform your business, career, and your life. Number one, like we talked about, was shifting your inner dialogue. So I want you to start journaling your internal dialogue about different situations and relationships, and reframe those in the opposite way. Really asking yourself, what would be the opposite of this, and what is the evidence for it? Number two is set your intentions for your interactions before you have them. And the actionable step you can do is before any interaction, meeting, email, etc., really visualize it going well, going the way you want it to, and find yourself shifting physiologically into that. Number three is owning your reality and identifying situations where you felt stuck, frustrated, and really ask yourself, how is that reflecting my past patterns, past beliefs, past things that I don't want to have in my life anymore? And then choose, what do I want to learn from this and how can I stop that? How can I really ask myself, what did I bring to this situation? What did I miss and how can I avoid it again? So I hope that that is really helpful for you and that everyone is you pushed out as a concept, whether you're new to it or you're experienced in it, that maybe you got a new perspective on it. I often find I will watch videos on the same things over and over. And sometimes it's just a tweak in how someone says something that it makes it click. Or I will hear the same video 10 times and it's the 10th time that something clicks differently because I've shifted, I'm different, and it lands different for me. So always come back to videos that you find really helpful. And remember, if you want to explore this concept more from a spiritual perspective and the law of assumption, go check out Neville Goddard and again, the concept of everyone is you pushed out. And psychologically, remember, people respond to how you respond to them, and people will put in patterns that you're used to. Remember, you trigger in others what you're used to. I'll say that one more time so you can reflect on that. You trigger in others what you are used to. If you're used to being treated a certain way, seen a certain way, you will unconsciously trigger people to treat you that way until you see yourself deserving better treatment. Just remember that. All right, beautiful souls. If you love today, come follow us on Instagram, come check us out, come connect, and I will see you in the next episode of Burnout to Brilliance. Bye for now.